you can't get experience, then make opportunities, make your own opportunities. So that's what I did. I made an opportunity to start a community. And then that's why, like, having that platform, like, opened up so many doors for me, even just to talk to you and talk to other designers. And then that's when things start to, like, the ripple effect that opens up. um, and then networking these days, I almost think like that's way more effective than the usual like job application process. The job interview process is more of a people process than like a, you know, application systems process.
Hello, everyone. Today we have another episode of UX Talks podcast, and I'm talking to Josh Lowe, who's a freelance UX designer from Vancouver, Canada. Josh talks about his career journey and how he transitioned from engineering field into UX, and how he brought over some of the skills that he could reuse from the previous career. He speaks to the differences between working as a consultant and as a parent employee, and highlights some of his experiences. Also, we discuss the challenges of building a community and also the benefits, on the other hand, that these can bring to you. In addition, Josh gives valuable advice on starting out and some tips to increase your chances of getting through the door when you're looking for a new job. Enjoy this episode. Hey, Josh. Hey, how are you? Long time no see.
Yes, sir. I've been looking forward to this, and glad that you decided to bring me on.
Exactly. I've been looking forward to this too, and I think the reason I was really curious to learn more about your recent steps in your career and your journey, and yeah, it's like what really changed in the last year because it seems like you're so busy and you have so many things on your plate. I would love to learn more about
Yeah.
yeah, what's happening in your life.
Well, the biggest change was I took on the newest, biggest job that'll probably last for decades, being a new father. And so,
Nice.
yeah, just taking on, you know, having a new baby in the family and in my life, like in the midst of COVID. So having like a COVID baby, or pandemic baby, however you want to call it. And you know, so that alone was really challenging, just because so just last month was a perfect example. My daughter just got the first cold, and we just put her in a daycare, so I thought, oh, finally I have extra time, you know, to spend in all my work, because prior to that I was doing daddy daycare. So my wife was working, and then I was taking care of her for 2 or 3 days a week. So yeah, it took out, like, you know, 40% of my day. And so that was challenging. And then when in the first week of daycare, she got sick, and then it's the typical situation where, like, she brought in the sickness. And thankfully, you know, we tested negative, no COVID. It's just everyone got the cough and cold, and it lasted 3 or 4 weeks, and just that took me out. So uh just balancing that, and then family members weren't really available because they were working, or, you know, just again, this environment, with, like, we couldn't take her to grandparents because it's a more higher risk. So that alone was really challenging. And then, yeah, I took on a full-time role. So I am a product designer at Care. It's a SaaS startup in the dental industry. They're just optimizing practice and clinic growth. And so, yeah, that's been a journey. I am now the sole designer at the company, and uh, working on some big roles, which I can dive into later on. But and then also on the side, prior to that, taking on the full time role, I have been doing freelance work. I took on some brand and design work, and I specialize more in Webflow development, which is great because it's a one-stop shop. You can design and develop all in one place. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
It's the summary, yeah. So sad to hear that you had this experience with the baby. And question: did you test the COVID test the baby too?
Yes, yes,
Really, they do
yeah.
it. Mm,
Swabbed her tiny little nose, and
poor thing.
but yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's kind of sad, but no, it was pretty quick.
yeah, and it's good that it's not COVID and everything is well now. And but yeah, I can relate to having this experience, this painful experience of bringing, or at least
Yes.
getting something from the daycares, from schools. I have three kids of my own, so it's definitely
Mm,
it's a non-stop circulation of viruses and different bacteria in the family. It's just yeah, incubation in yeah in its own way. There, just yeah, you cannot stop it. You
hmm.
cannot stop it. On the other hand, I think it's actually one of the ways how our immune system gets
Yep.
alert and just kind of yeah ready for other stuff. So it's pros and cons obviously to both sides. So it's like yeah discomfort and inconvenience at the beginning and some stress and maybe sleepless nights, but in the long term
Yeah.
I think our yeah bodies become healthier and stronger.
100%. Yeah. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I believe in this. I believe in this. Awesome. So I'm really excited to talk about your work side of the story
Hmm.
and your new updates in your career that you joined a role as a full time. So maybe let's start there with what exactly do you do there? Like what does a product designer do at Care Crew first of all, and what's the
Hmm.
scope of ownership there?
Yeah. So I've done a few contract work as a product designer at other startups, but this is like my first full time. Um, so I came in, they were, um, so just to rewind a little bit, my context, my background is in engineering. So I was a civil engineer for 7 years as a consultant. So I'm a very systematic, like logical thinking. That's just my
Hmm.
go-to default.
Analytical.
And so yeah, very analytical. Just make sure everything works and it's connected. And so I came in and they were using Sketch and they were using Envision and other things, and that's all good. That's all great. But I've been playing with Figma, so right away, it's a great company because they're very flexible in the systems that they use. So I just right away brought in Figma as the main driver for design, and then I introduced a whole design system. So I'm working on that, and that's been a whole big task. I've been really passionate about this fairly new field called design ops as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
DevOps. And so design ops, if you look more into the definition, Nielsen Norman, it's like the management between uh, like design systems and people and the work that needs to get done. And so um, that kind of overlaps into service design too, which is like as opposed to just focusing on the design elements for a particular product, you take a further step back and have more holistic view of how does design or the product itself or the interface connects with the user on like the front end and the back end. So in this case, I guess like dentist reception, um, how does like the back end staff of patient care and all the technical stuff for dentists like connect with the front end systems and like the front desk receptionist and all that stuff. So anyways, um, so yeah, I came in, brought in systems. I'm doing a design system, and then I'm also working on like enterprise management level designs at the moment, just to scale. So quite a bit, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
there for about 4 months now.
Nice. Still loving it, I assume.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I think what I love is just the flexibility and um, yeah, we're bringing on a new designer, so we're growing the team. There's a lot to update, so I think with the design system, it's we're coming up with the challenges of transitioning from the um, what is it the legacy system
Oh
and
yeah.
then breaking it down into like release features and how do you do that in a way that doesn't overwhelm the existing users. um, so we're the way we've done that is we've broken down the various features of the product into micro front ends, And so for me, yeah, I'm working on the enterprise. We're just gonna test that. That's kind of like testing grounds for like the new interface, new look and feel, new colors, sidebars, all that stuff, navigation systems, and then tweak as we go, update the components that are just related to those features, and then yeah, it's kind of like a testing ground. And then when we work out all the details, then you apply it to all the other areas, all the other features as well.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I can only imagine how much extra frustration change management can be from all this like old
Yes.
technology and tech debts, and yeah, just communicating these changes as well, especially when you have existing client base. Yeah, it's definitely, from my experience, it usually adds additional layer of challenges to your work. So yeah, I'm not super jealous of that.
Yeah, but
Cool.
it's very rewarding to know that you're updating and changing a whole new look and feel for the app. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a big area of ownership for you, which yeah, lots of designers look for. So that's pretty. I'm happy to hear that you found this place where you can
Hmm.
um, yeah, enjoy this part of the job and scaling this bigger platform to the future.
Yeah, and
Cool.
what's interesting about finding this job is it was just through a referral from my friend who's a developer there, and I don't know, we can get into this other conversation, but just like, I mean, I know you help a lot of people and designers finding jobs, but this was just through referral. It wasn't through me actively applying, and um, I'd be curious to know if they would actually hire me in the first place if they just saw like my existing resume. Because actually, yeah, my background is in engineering, and I'm like 3 years into the UX design space. I don't have a lot of solid quote unquote experience, or like three to
Mhm.
5 years experience, right? um, so yeah, that's always an interesting thing. Like sometimes these jobs just kind of come on your lap
Yeah,
and all by
yeah, I
chance.
agree. I agree. Referrals seem to be a very effective way of getting jobs, and I see quite a few platforms these days that are focusing on like maybe like social networks for corporate employees around the world, or like sometimes anonymous, like Blinds and Glassdoors and all that stuff.
Hmm.
One of the interesting trends that I've been observing is that like almost, I think it's like every platform now is going the direction of adding the feature of being referred to a job or to a company, even if you may
Mm.
not know a person there. There's like an option like get referred, something like this, which is logical. I just kind of, I'm always curious, like how does it work on the back end? Does it mean that the person who works there have to refer somebody without really knowing and being able to vouch for their skills? So that's an interesting
Mm.
dilemma, just potentially for the sake of a financial benefit for referring a person if they go through.
Hmm.
Cool. Okay, so I know that you have a very interesting and unique path, which you already slightly mentioned, that
Yeah.
you're coming from engineering. I
Hmm.
would love to for you to share this story quickly. Like, how did you really start, and why did you go into the UX world? And the angle I want you to keep in mind here is really there is one of the key questions in the current, I guess, in the job market here, is that for people who are switching careers or who are considering
Yeah.
switching careers from maybe sometimes related fields, or sometimes actually some may argue that not a bit more distant fields, right? So I
Hmm.
wonder if you have any tips and advice here as well, after you share the story, on how one can prepare themselves better for a career transition, and how they can use their previous career as a maybe as a way to kind of grow skills that could be applicable to the UX world, because you went through this transition yourself. So you were in a
Hmm.
different industry in engineering, as I recall, and you went to UX. So there is something related to analytical thinking and like kind of dissecting problems and really logical thinking through the problems would be relevant.
Mhm.
So maybe you can kind of share more, like what really were the key takeaways from your previous career that you could apply in your next one.
Yeah, there's so many ways to go about this, but I think my story would probably apply for those who have been in an industry, who's intermediate to senior. So I was in civil engineering as a consultant, 7 years, and so uh, yeah, for those who are thinking about switching into design, I think mine would probably apply. My story would apply more towards you. So naturally, in engineering, I was already doing a lot of design work, right? And it's very technical. Um, and even within my 7 years, it's quite varied. So I was in the mining industry for 4 years, and then in the building construction industry as doing mechanical systems, plumbing and mechanical for 3 years. So very detailed. Played with a lot of spreadsheets. Like I was a Excel master, and all those like the formulas, the logic that comes with Excel, like that's already been developed. And then also I'm working with like blueprints and drawings. So that I think already gave me a good strong foundation when I applied for technical jobs. So actually, my current role, I think when I was interviewed, my engineering experience gave me a huge leg up above all the other designers. So that was I was very lucky and fortunate in that aspect. So long story short, I was basically, I guess, overworked, underpaid. I won't go into the details, but I enjoyed it. I think, but eventually I just got to a point where um, it was good. It was good work. It was um, paid well in certain industries, um, but it wasn't that fulfilling or rewarding. And there were days I would wake up and I would just dread going to work, and it was like my soul was just so dry. And I think on the side, I the only creative outlet I had was I was really interested in like just making videos or like videography work. So I was doing like wedding gigs, or I was starting to expand like a side gig while on top of doing my main job as an engineer. Just doing like corporate event videos, highlight videos, things like that. And so I already started to develop my creative side there. I stumbled upon UX. So I basically took a like a gap year. Gave myself 6 months to a year just to like rest, recover, and I think that is so helpful for just someone who's just worked for 7+ years. There's this I forgot the title of the book. I think it's called Rest, um, where it just covers a lot of like CEOs or like um, uh, company owners who every 7 years, they would just take like a sabbatical, and that's just so important to like reflect, pivot your where you're going your career. And so I kind of did that, and so I gave myself permission. I was fortunate enough to have enough funds to just like stay afloat for a little bit. So I did some traveling with my wife and just explored, and I was looking at all sorts of different things, like just ridiculous stuff, like should I start a coffee shop, or should I move to um like the island, that's where I grew up, like do some sustainable living, ridiculous stuff. I was looking into like firefighting. It's just all out there stuff. I had a little bit of a military background, like did some cadets and stuff like that. So and then I was looking into digital marketing. That was another option. So I applied for this role, for a marketing role, and they replied back saying, "Hey, I appreciate your initiative, but I'd like to get you certified." So they suggested to check out either Udemy or Red Academy at the time, and never heard of like Red Academy. So I was checking out the website, and I stumbled upon a UX program. So so I really got into UX by chance, and I fell in love with it. Just the more I looked into it, it was really the marriage between like the creative, expressive side and like the logical, practical side. And I thought this is perfect. So it's just yeah, and I actually surprisingly acted really quickly. The next cohort for Red Academy, started within like a week, and I just like pulled the trigger and just signed up and fell in love with it. It was a 3 month boot camp. Obviously, I was like one of the older guys in there, um, and yeah, I just ate it up. I was really curious. Actually, I was kind of hesitant that I would actually get enough in a 3 month program to actually, like, they sell you'd be very employable, and
Mm-hmm.
90% of like graduates would
Mm-hmm.
get jobs. And I think that was probably true when it first started, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. Now maybe not so much, but I don't know, maybe someone from like brain station can confirm. But um yeah, that was a little bit of my journey into like UX. And then since then I've just been doing like contract work. So I think the normal uh journey after boot camps, um because the majority of this my schoolmates, classmates, whatever you want to call it, they were like in their 20s. I was already in my 30s. So I had a lot of good experience and management skills that I could kind of start things on my own. But if you are graduating from a boot camp, and you know it's quite daunting to just like take up freelance on your own, because literally you're just starting your own business. Like, you have to know about invoicing, managing your own time, talking to different clients and things like that. And I've done that in my professional work. So so I was fortunate to just like jump out, and after graduating, and then uh getting paid pretty decently. And then yeah, I also had quite a bit of confidence to like back up negotiations, and that's a whole other topic too. So but I think that was like really my first opportunity, other than the small side gigs and videography, where I could like see what I could do. Like, let's see how far I can actually take, and how many side gigs or jobs I can actually pull off. And so yeah, that's kind of like my gist of the
Mm-hmm.
entering into the UX journey.
And yeah, a few questions to ask here. So first, you mentioned the Red Academy, right?
Hmm.
And your experience there. So, and as far as I understand, they're not working. They're not open anymore, at least in
Yes.
Vancouver. So they
Hmm.
closed. And then I also know that and we interacted before while you were a part of this Collab Collective community.
Hmm.
And I would
Yeah.
like, because I remember also that the initial group that I spoke with there was, I think it was from the same cohort from Red Academy that you went to,
Yeah.
right? And this was like,
Mhm.
as far as I recall, the primary drive for you to launch that community, Collab Collective,
Mhm.
as a way to address the unfilled, as a gap
Mhm.
in the market when Red Academy closed, right? So
Mhm.
maybe you could share the story of like what exactly the Red Academy was like. What was the benefit that was differentiating that particular organization from others, and how did you try to use the same maybe value proposition or similar value proposition when you started the Collab Collective community, and where did it go?
Okay. Yeah. Um, so Red Academy, it is very sad that it's no longer existing and went down. But at the time, they had a really strong community, and what really one of the biggest thing that set them apart was they had real clients in their projects. And so when you finished your program, you actually had real experience working with people, and instead of just a hypothetical like concept of a project and thing, or like a brief. So that was very valuable. And yeah, so my time, just to backtrack a little bit, because I was brand new in the industry, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know who's what, or like the relationship between like developers and designers and marketers. And I kind of noticed that they were kind of all siloed. And so during my 3 months there, I love like creating events and holding events. So this is before COVID, the pandemic. I was hosting monthly, or every 2 or 3, every 2 months, live events. So I would like bring in industry experts. So this group was called Juice Labs, and it was just it was just comprised of uh, friends from my class, and I just got local industry experts to speak on various topics, and it was mainly for me to learn about the industry. um, and that's when I really started to see the power of like community, and how many doors it actually opens up, because I was like, wow, like these speakers would actually make themselves available. And I didn't have a budget. I was still a student at the time, and so they were willing to speak for free, and it was awesome. So I ended up uh, having one of the product managers from Later to come and speak at one of our events, and we hosted it at Pavilion, which is a beautiful co-working space in Vancouver. So yeah, we I think we did a total of 6 or 7 events. So I learned a lot from that, and that was like, as you know, community development and managing is a lot of work. You really need a lot of passion. And again, for me, it scratched my need to like learn about the industry, but also to bridge the gap between those siloed communities between like developers, design, and marketers. um, so yeah, we had events on like logo design, what's the difference between like product and project management. We had coaches that helped on like more soft skills like the art of communication, resolving conflict.
Mhm.
So yeah, we covered a lot of different things, and that just sparked um, yeah, this passion of like, hey, I want to do more. So I learned a lot. You have to be extremely organized. You have to have a good solid group of volunteers, and like just managing volunteers, if you don't pay them, it's tough. You have to keep them motivated. You have to paint the vision for what we're doing, which is creating the Vancouver tech industry, or community, like building it up really strong. And so I think similarly to you, uh, we saw a gap in just like, I think, well, at least for me, I saw the gap of like these boot camp grads. After they're done, they're just kind of like left off on their own, and so there's very little resource in helping people like find jobs.
Mhm.
um, Red Academy did have some like career days after, but it was only just the one event after you've graduated, and after that it's just up to you. So um, yeah, so I learned a lot about the industry, and I think you've recently pivoted from, you realize, I guess, the Vancouver market is a little bit small, and we just need to go global. So anyways, that was the backstory of that for Juice Labs. So we shortly after I became a dad, and then just kind of shut it down. The pandemic arrived, and then Collab Collective was a response to the pandemic, because at the time people were just having trouble finding jobs, and so that was like the immediate need that we wanted to meet. It's like, hey, um, and that's when we started. That's when we first connected with you, because you were doing something great with the job board. Iterate UX, shout out to them. They're awesome community, global, but I guess based in Vancouver is Letitia. They just do whiteboarding sessions, and everything just became digital. It was all Zoom meetings, everything like that. And so all those ideas that I had with Juice Labs, with the variety of different like topics, I just decided to launch this podcast. Everyone was going into podcasting. And then yeah, I got you on board as one of the episodes, so that was great. And then I just started exploring like live streaming. Everyone was just fumbling around, so um yeah, we had a lot of aspirations. We were thinking about like setting up a mentorship group, which ADP list now like has done really great. So again, the opportunities to connect with people and networking just by running a community was amazing. We ended up being a sponsor at um, Vancouver UX Awards, and so yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. But I think to answer your question, like so the Red Academy group, the crew, they had similar passions too, and they just wanted to help people. I think their heart is always just to help, their community find jobs. I think that was like the main thing. So forward to now, um, it's funny actually. I was planning to have like a farewell session. So Collab Collective is shutting down, and
Mm-hmm.
that was due to many reasons. Number one, again, volunteers. Like, if we're not paying them, it's really hard. Everyone's busy. Everyone's got to pay their bills, and so like the amount of time behind planning all these events and stuff like that, it's quite a lot. And so, um, yeah, finding committed people to stick around is hard. And then also, I'm like running a full time job. I'm doing side gigs. I'm being a new dad, and so I was okay. I learned, like, you know what? I think it's important to uh, admit, to say, hey, things aren't working, and it's okay. You can just kind of close out. And so yeah, I actually wanted to have one last like live stream session just to like wrap up and say, hey, but
Farewell.
again,
Yeah.
even yeah, and even then we were too busy to get together, and so that's just the reality. But I guess this is it. I guess I can share. I just want to say, like, to other people, like, um it's okay to try something and then even just say, hey, it didn't work. And I think like that's why I love UX, because user experience design, it's all about iterating, it's all about trying new things. um and so even the word, experience, it's like it shares the same root word as experiment. So you're always trying new things, and if it doesn't work, you move on and you learn from your experience and what to do, what not to do. um, so for me, it was just like lack of resources and time. But
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, it's still a passion of mine. If I have more time, I'd be happy to revive it, or reboot it in some shape or manner. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And I clearly remember that I what I said when we had this first call with you and the group. I think it was like a year and a half ago now, maybe, yeah, almost two
Hmm.
years. That building a community, that I thought that building a community was an enormous job. Like there's so much effort and dedication and time that at least my perception of what building community is entails or was entailing.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was like I was like, I respect your desire to build a community because it's not an easy job, and it's definitely lots of sacrifices, lots of, I guess, deciding on the prioritizing some of the tasks that are related to building this almost like non-profit thing. When
Hmm.
you have all the other competing priorities that are more time sensitive usually, and more
Hmm.
essential to living your life in most regards, right? Especially like the family and your own health and paying your bills,
Hmm.
which is yeah, completely understandable. So I empathize with the prioritization there, especially with the new jobs that you took on, like as a dad, as a young dad
Yeah.
again. I think that's definitely reshuffles the priorities for many people, and it should. I think that's this
Hmm.
phase of your life is unique, and it would be a shame to miss all these moments with your baby, with your child, that you will
Hmm.
never get back. And you're totally right about the experimentation, and that you that I think it's we should normalize, and lots of people say that, and they try to normalize the, I guess, the not not so successful experiments,
Hmm.
because you don't really know how things, like, it's always a bet. It's always a
Yeah,
game that you kind of start playing, and you don't know how it will end until you go through
that's right.
at least the first few steps, right? And then with every next step you reevaluate, and you make
Mhm.
choices about what you do next, and if it makes sense to continue in this direction, or if you need to pivot, or if you need to pause it and put it on the shelf until maybe your baby 18 and she leaves the house, or he leaves the house. And yeah, so uh, everything that you mentioned about the priorities and the lack of time, like, completely resonates with me. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, understandable choices and sacrifices, and yeah, I think it definitely speaks of your values and your current priorities at this current stage of your life and career. And that's, yeah, that's life.
Yeah, I think it's really important to know your foundational values and priorities and not to overextend yourself to sacrifice those things um, in place of, establishing the next shiny fun thing to do. And so, yeah, I'm taking this time to rest, but I think once I more time opens up, I definitely want to develop community again, or at the end of the day, I'm like a firm believer of like collaboration over competition. And you just look at the landscape of, I guess, just Vancouver on its own. There are some great communities out there, but it's just I think in small circles. And so I think it was important just to connect everyone together and collaborate, because the more we do that, the more, even in just our digital landscape of like remote work, we can just refer more work to each other. Because that was the gaps. I just saw so many gaps of like people finding a hard time getting jobs, or even getting the training or getting the proper like mentorship. Like, where do you go? And so networking was like the most important thing I've learned in community building. Like, that goes so far as opposed to just doing things on your own and like, you know, building up your portfolio. Um, so that's a super powerful tool.
Totally, totally agree. Okay, so next question I had for you is related to your experience of having worked at like as a freelancer on these
Hmm.
I guess side projects and those more independent projects, and also being a part of a team, a design team within a company. That's your current job, right?
Hmm.
And I wonder if you could draw some parallels between the two different, I guess, types of environments and dynamics. And obviously, every environment and every company, every team will be unique in its own way. There will be some, always the answer would be depends. But I'm curious to hear
Hmm.
your personal experience and the path that you went through. How do those two worlds compare, the freelancing versus the day job, the pros and cons, and
Okay.
any, I guess, your personal takeaways from experiencing both worlds?
Okay. I'll speak generally to comparing freelancing and a day job, and then I'll go into my own specific experience. So freelancing, you should be more experienced when you get to this space. Everything's on you. You are the main boss, so you call the shots. So you should already know what should be done, what should be avoided, things like that. And so you're directly working with the client. There's a lot of things to manage, and so the beauty about that is like, if you like to call the shots and like have control, then that's yeah, the good path to take. Day job, you're in a system, you're in a company, you aren't the boss, you're an employee. And so the pros and cons for that is, the pros is there's some level of care and like even all the invoicing, payment, all that stuff's like taken care of. You just get to focus on the design itself, and that's it. um, and so, and you're in a team, you are not alone. um, and so that's the great thing about it. I guess the cons is like, you're kind of at the mercy of like what the company culture is, or what your manager wants you to do. And so you're kind of dictated in that way. um but also you have, yeah, you have the ability to learn from someone too, right? So if you are fairly new and you're lacking the skills and you want to learn from someone, that's a great place to go. For me, like I said, I think the day job, my experience, I learned mostly from my 7 years in engineering. And I've yeah, those are like formative years, and they were really good because it really uh, hammered in like systems, and things have to be like standardized, and all that stuff. So I already had that um, coming out of the gate after graduating from Red Academy. So I just went straight into freelancing, and I loved it. Yes, it's a little bit, it's fun, but it's stressful because the paycheck is not consistent. It's all project based, right? And so Um, I I loved it though. It was my way of really stretching myself, to have that like concept, start from concept to finished product like experience. Um, and so I was working mainly with a lot of like yeah, websites, working on Webflow and things like that. Um, and so I think that kind of answers your question, but I think I started freelancing. I couldn't find a full-time job in design yet, but my freelance experience really helped. And when I finally did land the job, um, my freelance experience really helped me see the bigger picture. So as right now, I'm working directly with the co-founder, and if I kind of had the mindset of like, hey, I'm an employee, like you tell me what to do, um, that that is limiting. And so I kind of, it's all about perspective and that whole skill of empathy, right? It's like, okay,
Hmm.
I actually have a lot of experience of like knowing what clients are looking for. And like for example, like my co-founder and most clients, they just kind of want the big picture deliverables. Like, I don't care about, this button being perfectly pixeled and
Hmm.
this width and height. Like, I just want the big overall structure of the content placement or this and that. um, and so they're also, battling, or even research, they sacrifice a lot of the upfront planning and research, user research, because they don't have time to like invest in that. They just need to deliver something because they have stakeholders, or clients or customers like demanding certain releases. So so that gave me a good perspective to just say, oh, you know you just want the high level deliverable, it's done, okay, we can focus on the detail stuff after. So yeah, I think freelancing and being like a business owner really helped.
Do you see yourself going back to freelancing sometime later?
So I think this all depends. Depends on the family situation, but I think the ultimate goal, I think, for most people is just to have financial freedom, right? So I think there's a lot of amazing opportunities out there right now, especially in this like pandemic environment where remote work is just all over. So um and I believe in like Webflow. I believe in this whole no code, low code revolution. um I think the future is very bright, and I think the opportunities to get new clients from like all over the place, um and the amount of um money and things flowing and invested into the space is quite high. And so I think there's um yeah, I think that has a lot of promise. And so if it's in the freelance route or running my own business, then yes. But right now, I think a full-time job, it takes like the paycheck is covers what I need for my family, and it's steady and stable. So that's meeting my needs at the moment. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
hope
think it's
my employer doesn't listen to this, but yeah.
and yeah, obviously everything we say in this podcast is just our own opinions, and it
Yeah,
doesn't really represent any of our current employers or previous employers. Um,
yeah.
I wonder if you, going back to, like, I guess one of the questions that I skipped initially, but I want to go back to is thinking from, and obviously your journey is unique. So you didn't really, you got
Mhm.
your, I guess, your day job, your full time job through a referral, which is not common, but some people have this opportunity, right?
Mhm.
But thinking from the point of view of applying to jobs and really kind of getting into the job market right now, considering all the competition that's in the market. And it's kind of interesting that there is more competition, and there's a quite unbalanced market, more competition on the junior and maybe intermediate side, but more openings
Mhm.
on the senior jobs. So it's kind of like
Okay.
high competition on one side in the one segment of the market, but it's reversed in the other. So
Mhm.
if you had to look for a job today, so how would you really, what would you do to stand out? That's kind of the question I wanted to ask.
Yeah, this is such a dilemma. This is a huge. problem that we're trying to solve, even with our communities, like for juniors and intermediate designers, or people to get jobs. It's tough. It's one of those things, like, because companies are looking for people for with experience, but you as a junior, you don't have experience. So how do you get experience if you don't have experience? So it's that catch 22 thing. Um, yeah, I would say, I always kind of tell others, like, work on your own gigs. This is kind of like that introduction into freelance, like, build your portfolio, sure, but like, have like, if you can't get experience, then make your own opportunities. So that's what I did. I made an opportunity to start a community. And then that's why, like, having that platform, like, opened up so many doors for me, even just to talk to you and talk to other designers. And then that's when things start to, like, the ripple effect that opens up. um, and then networking these days, I almost think, like, that's way more effective than the usual, like, job application process. Because again, it's a people, uh, how do I say this, it's like, the job interview process is more of a people process than like a, application systems process.
Hmm.
And so that's just my own personal take. Like, I actually hate jumping through all the hoops and all that stuff, and making sure all the keywords in your resume and portfolio matches, like,
Hmm.
the system. I just can't be bothered to do that, just because, yeah, I don't know, I just don't have patience for it. But I'd rather stand out that way, by like creating opportunities and reaching out to people.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Going, um, I guess, wide and shallow, but just applying to hundreds of jobs is seems to be not the most effective strategy these days, just because of the highest volume. And what I've seen that many companies um, join this, I guess, automation wave when they introduce
Hmm.
more and more strict filters, more strict,
Hmm.
I guess, yeah, machine learning mechanisms to screen out candidates that do not match 70 to 90% of the job description or keywords that they specify. So there's definitely, I guess, way more room for being missed if you just go the standard route. And just some companies, they maybe sometimes they even set up the filters not very correctly, which
Hmm.
yeah, kind of adds to this the whole other big problem about diversity and inclusion and all this candidate experience as well, which is probably
I'll,
another few
I'll add
hours of
something real
conversation.
quick.
Yeah.
I think the whole point of UX, or a huge part, is like, to allow the systems and the automations to uh, match and fit more of a human experience, as opposed to having the humans fit the systems and automations. Because when you can do that, then you ultimately highlight that natural uh, way of people interacting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's that. I guess like this is the ideal state of the
Yeah. Yeah.
of how it should be done. But in reality, I know for a fact that lots of companies, they were just because they don't have time to really be more mindful and thoughtful of what candidates go through. So only, like, I know really only a handful of companies who really care about this, and their actions prove that. It's not just that everybody says that, yeah, we care about the candidate experience, but in reality, it's always not the top priority for them. And it's so I'm so happy to see when some companies uh, they prove, like, they basically lead by example of how they're they empathize with the candidates
Hmm.
uh, point of view and the candidate's perspective, and really optimize the journey. It's also almost like service design and customer
Hmm.
experience in a sense, to first of all, yeah, to improve the employer brand and to yeah, do good for the world and for the market. And I always respect that. But so few companies prioritize time for this. But at least the trend is positive. So like I've seen like more and more companies kind of showing some signals.
Mhm.
with how they approach this, and that's good trend. Quite slow, but still good.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So we're already on time. So let's wrap it up. And I really enjoyed you sharing all those insights and your personal thoughts and opinions on how market works, and like what would you do if you were seeking for a job right now.
Mhm.
If
You're
somebody
welcome.
wants to reach out and really ask some maybe additional questions, or keep an eye on what other communities you'll get involved in, and when, where can they find you?
Right now I have my current portfolio website, just joshloh.com. So JOSHLOH. LOH is my last name. Or email me at josh at corecreative.com. That's core with a COR, core creative.
Sounds good.
Sorry,
Awesome.
josh at corecreative.ca.
Okay. Yeah, I'll include the links in the show notes as well. Awesome. Thanks,
Great.
Josh. It was a pleasure to catch up and really hear what you've been up to in the last year.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. Like, share, subscribe, all the jazz, and have a wonderful day.